There are two kinds of tragedies: the ones that arrive without warning, and the ones that leave people asking whether they could have been prevented. After a murder, it's human nature to look backward, to search for the missed phone call, the conversation that suddenly takes on new meaning, and the warning signs that only become obvious once it's too late. Sometimes there are none. Sometimes they're there all along, hidden behind closed doors, concealed by silence, or mistaken for something less serious than they truly are. Because no one wants to believe the worst about someone they love, and no one wants to imagine that an ordinary family could be moving toward an unimaginable tragedy. When we left Groton in part 1, a community was still trying to understand how 4 people could lose their lives inside a family home. Many believed the worst chapter in the town's history had already been written. But just 2 years later, another family would be forever changed. Another 911 call, another quiet neighborhood, and another tragedy that would leave behind difficult questions not only about what happened, but whether it could have been prevented. This isn't simply the story of a homicide. It's a story about warning signs, mental illness, domestic violence, a family searching for help, and a woman remembered by everyone who knew her for her kindness she quietly shared with others. Her name was Mary Fairburn, and this is Murders in Groton, Part 2, Behind Closed Doors, by Murders in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, history lives on every street corner, in every town center, in every quiet neighborhood. You think you know, but behind some of those places are stories that never really left. Stories of people, families, and moments that have changed entire communities forever. This is Murders in Massachusetts. I'm Jonathan Power, creator, executive producer, and host. Each episode will take a closer look at real cases across the Bay State. Not just what happened, but where it happened, and how it continues to shape the people and places left behind. Because these aren't just headlines, they're part of the towns we call home. And if you find these stories meaningful, be sure to follow the podcast so you always know when new episodes are available. This podcast discusses real crimes, including murder, and in some cases, crimes involving children. These topics may be disturbing for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Some stories leave us searching for answers long after the headlines fade. Not because we don't know what happened, but because we can't stop asking why. When we left Groton in Part 1, the community was trying to make sense of an unimaginable act of family violence. Many hoped it would have been the kind of tragedy the town experiences only once. It wasn't. 2 years later, Groton would once again find itself in the center of a homicide investigation. But this story is different. This time there were questions about warning signs, about opportunities to intervene, and about whether the outcome could have been different. And just over 2 years later, another family, another home, another emergency call, and once again Groton would find itself in the center of a homicide investigation. On the evening of October 19th, 2019, at approximately 5:30 p.m., Gregory Fairburn dialed 911 from his home at 747 Lowell Road in Groton. He didn't ask for help. He didn't report an emergency. According to investigators, he calmly told the dispatcher he had murdered his wife with a knife. Police officers responded immediately. Outside the home, they found 62-year-old Gregory Fairburn. Court records would describe him mumbling incoherently. At one point, officers said he asked them to shoot him. Inside the home, they found Mary Fairburn. She was 57 years old. She was lying on a bed inside the couple's bedroom. An autopsy would later determine she had been stabbed 27 times. Gregory Fairburn was arrested and charged with her murder. During his arraignment in Ayr District Court, prosecutors requested he be held without bail. The court agreed. Because of concerns surrounding his mental health, he was transferred to Bridgewater State Hospital for psychiatric evaluation and to be determined whether he was competent to stand trial. But to better understand what happened that evening means understanding who Mary Fairburn was, because Mary deserves to be remembered for far more than the way her life ended. Mary grew up in nearby Arlington, Massachusetts, graduating from Arlington High School before beginning a long career in computer programming. Friends and neighbors remembered her as someone who quietly helped others without expecting recognition. She checked on neighbors' animals. She cleared snow for shared driveways. She looked after people. One neighbor described her as the salt of the earth. She and Gregory had been married for decades. Together, they raised 2 children. Their son, Connor, had died before Mary. Their daughter was an adult living on her own. By October of 2019, only Gregory, Mary, and their dogs remained in the Lowell Road home. Neighbors would later tell reporters that the Fairburns largely kept to themselves. Many admitted they barely knew Gregory. Mary, however, people remembered. In the weeks before the murder, some neighbors noticed more arguing than usual. Something seemed different, but few could have imagined what was about to happen. As investigators would dig deeper, a troubling picture began to emerge. According to police interviews, Gregory told investigators the attack began after he looked through Mary's cell phone and saw what he described only as things. Exactly what he meant was never publicly explained. Investigators, however, quickly focused on something else. Gregory admittedly had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He also told police he had stopped taking his psychiatric medication about 5 months earlier. Investigators described him as confused, unable to finish thoughts, frequently losing track of what he was going to say. A court psychologist later observed significant memory problems and what clinicians referred to as thought blocking, moments when someone suddenly becomes unable to continue speaking because their thoughts simply stop. Mary's sister, Anne Donahue, would later reveal something the public didn't know. According to Donahue, family members had become increasingly concerned about Gregory's deteriorating mental health in the days before the murder. They contacted police more than once. They warned that Mary was in danger. They asked for help. After Mary's death, Donahue publicly criticized the response. She said they didn't kill her, but they were negligent in every step of the way of protecting Mary. Those are serious allegations. Groton police have not publicly agreed with that characterization. And because Massachusetts has one of the nation's broadest domestic violence confidentiality laws, many of the records surrounding those earlier police contacts have never been released. Journalists investigating the case later found that multiple police departments denied requests for those records, citing the state's domestic violence privacy statute. The law was written to protect victims. Critics argue it can also make it difficult to understand whether opportunities for intervention were missed. It's impossible to know whether a different response would have changed what happened. What is clear is that the people close to Mary believe she was in danger before October 19th. The case has still not gone to trial. The delays have not been because the investigation has stopped searching for answers. Instead, the courts were faced with a different question: whether Gregory Fairburn was mentally competent to stand trial. After his arrest on October 19, 2019, Fairburn was arraigned 2 days later in Air District Court on the charge of murder. He was ordered held without bail and committed to Bridgewater State Hospital, where he underwent psychiatric incompetency evaluations. Based on those evaluations, medical professionals indicated they intended to petition the court to have him declared incompetent to stand trial. Under Massachusetts law, a defendant cannot be prosecuted unless they are able to understand the criminal proceedings against them and meaningfully assist in their own defense. Competency is a legal determination, not simply a medical diagnosis, and until that question is resolved, a trial cannot move forward. If there's anything these two Groton stories teach us, it's that tragedy doesn't always arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it comes without warning. Other times the warning signs are there, hidden behind the doors of a family home, behind silence, behind fear, behind the hope that tomorrow will somehow be different. Remembering these stories isn't about defining a town by its darkest moments. It's about honoring the people whose lives were taken, learning from what happened, and refusing to let them be forgotten. Because every victim has a story, every family deserves compassion, and every community deserves the opportunity to learn from its past. And with that, before we leave Groton, there's one more story. One that happened long before the murders on Common Street, long before the death of Mary Fairburn, a case that would quietly become part of Groton's history. It was 1996. A 16-year-old girl, an older sister, a secret, and a diary that investigators would later say helped uncover a murder plot. It would become known as the Diary Murder. In a special bonus episode, we'll go back to where Groton's modern history of tragedy actually began. This special bonus episode, Deadly Sister, the Diary Murder. Because sometimes the darkest stories are the ones hidden in plain sight. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, or if you're concerned that someone you love may be in danger, please know that help is available. You are not alone. If you're in immediate danger, call 911. You can also contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline by calling 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233, or by visiting thehotline.org for confidential support 24 hours a day. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health crisis or thoughts of suicide, call or text 988, the Suicide Crisis Lifeline, where trained counselors are available around the clock. Thank you for listening to Murders in Massachusetts. If this episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it. And be sure to follow or hit the like button so you always know when new episodes are released. Multi-part episodes will be released on a weekly basis, while standalone episodes will follow a bi-weekly release schedule. You can always find more information about this or any episode at murdersinma.com. If you have any insight into a case or a story you believe should be told, you can reach me directly at murdersinmapodcasts@gmail.com. And as always, remember the stories we tell here are about real people, real families, and communities that continue to carry them. I'm Jonathan Power. We'll see you next time.